Welcome to our continuing journey of looking at the faces of violence which we encounter in our life together. Uh, we considered a couple of faces of violence in the faith communities of our culture, and then in the games we play, watch on the field. And this is our fourth week of taking a look at isms, which is a suffix that identifies a factor which is the guiding principle of attitude and language and actions. The commonality of partisanship, sexism, racism is that each of these establish a rank, a superiority, which gives permission of those who are superior to exercise violence to control and keep those who are inferior in their place. Now, this is certainly true as we looked at partisanism. One party, by being that party, is superior to the other, period. This is true with sexism. One gender is superior over the other, period. This is true with racism. One race is superior over the other, period. This week, we're considering another ism, nationalism, which also establishes a rank. One nation is superior over others. And this superiority gives permission to the superior nation to exercise violence to control and keep other inferior nations in their place. Now, 2 days from when you're discussing this video, or next week if you're hearing it on the tube, we don't have to be any more than casually aware of the current movements which exist in our culture and on this planet Earth to see nationalism as a face of violence in our life together. Nationalism in the United States of America is that the United States is a superior nation. We're not talking about economy. We're not talking about politics. We're not talking about social principles. We're talking about we're superior because we're the United States, period. Now, this guiding principle leads many, not all, but many leaders and followers to believe that any difference of opinion among nations, the United States is right because we are superior. This guiding principle leads many, not all, but many leaders and followers to rewrite our history when wrongs were committed, to make right those previous wrongs as justified. Why? Because we're superior. And whatever we do is right, even if it was wrong. You see, nationalism denies any moral code which might question the action taken by the nation that believes it is superior. Now, nationalism in and of itself is a face of violence, but it is multiplied in intensity when the superiority rank of a nation is divinely ordained and justified. In other cultures in the world, countries consider themselves to be superior because of the faith that they have. It might be Jewish, it might be Islamic, it might be any other religion that divinely justifies the superiority of one nation over the other. Now, in the United States, divinely ordained nationalism is known as Christian nationalism. This divine ordination justifies, it makes right every law, practice, cultural habits right because of nationalism. And Christian nationalism says that we are right and divinely ordained to be superior. You see, this divine ordination makes everything right because God is on our side, never asking the question that President Abraham Lincoln asked, and that is, are we on God's side? Christian nationalism eliminates that question. Now, my working definition of violence is that any intentional or unintentional, covert or overt use of force or an act which denies or refuses to recognize the identity, the value, the rights, or humanity of another human being. That act, that use of force, is violent. And nationalism fits this definition. For nationalism, denies the identity, rights, and humanity of others and makes them inferior because of their citizenship of another nation. A month ago, all the United Methodist churches in the Great Plains Conference were asked to recognize the corporate sin which occurred in our country when we ripped families of indigenous Indians apart by arresting, in some cases, and in other cases, capturing and taking children away from their families, away from their tribe, to be educated in boarding schools to change their identity, remove the rights given to them by their tribes, and dehumanizing them using every tactic available to the end that these children would be changed in heart, mind, body, and soul by the boarding school. This strategy was violent. This strategy was wrong. Not according to Christian nationalists who were a party to establishing the schools, and some of them in this past month wondered why the United Methodist Church would make an issue out of boarding schools something that there wasn't anything wrong with them. It was justified because the Constitution, laws, practices, and actions of the United States are superior to the Constitution, laws, practices, and actions of any other nation on earth, especially the indigenous tribes who were nations before the United States in this land. For 30 years, the statement of mission of the United Methodist Church is, quote, to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. Now, this mission assumes that the world, including every nation in the world, stands in need of being transformed by the gift of divine love to be experienced in human relationships and the relationships between nations. That's what it means to transform the world and every nation within it. You see, as followers of Jesus, we must name, claim, and indeed transform our culture, our nation, by our words and deeds as agents of God to be over against any guiding principle which replaces the guiding principle of divine love. This includes witnessing by word and deed over against the other isms: partisanism, sexism, racism, including nationalism. The peril of any ism is that it gives permission and enables violent acts and language to be accepted and to be normative. We cannot overemphasize the power of the rhetoric of silence represented in the isms of our day. But friends, that's not the way of Jesus. The guiding principle in following Jesus is empathetic and sacrificial love. No party, no gender, no race, no nation is superior to another. For superiority gives birth to pride and arrogance. The invitation of Jesus is to a life of humility and a life of service. The beauty of Jesus' call to humility and service is that it allows followers to be patriotic citizens of any nation on earth. For a patriotic citizen is committed to the common good in their land, and a follower of Jesus is called to serve for the common good. We can be responsible citizens without falling prey to the guiding principle of nationalism. For we are called to serve the common good. We're not called to be a servant of superiority. There's a lot there to unpack, and for your thought and conversation, I would just offer these questions. What are your examples and stories of the existence of nationalism in the United States today? What, quote, boarding school strategies exist today to advocate for the superiority of the United States in America in 2024? And what is your response to the understanding of the compatibility of patriotic citizenship and following Jesus, and the incompatibility of following Jesus and nationalism? Thanks for being a part of our journey.